Hey there, welcome back. We are proceeding with the chat app tutorial. Sorry for the delay. It's been a pretty busy week. But if I remember correctly where we left off, we had gone ahead and created our chat page and created our conditional visibility for which message would be defined for the authenticated user versus the other user in the chat or users. But we hadn't actually put in any content here, which doing that is pretty much the same steps and process that you would for putting content in any other aspect of your app. So I'm just going to kind of do that real quick, just for reference point. So probably like a column in there and shrink it down some, and copy and paste, drop it in the other one. It's not gonna. There we go. I do want to. Let's see here. It looks like it might already be brought in some. Maybe not. Go over here to my widget tree so I can see how I've got this here. It doesn't look like I have it brought in from the edges at all, so I'm just going to do that real quick. Pull it off the edge some on either side. All right, so you can just kind of put whatever information here that you want to and line it up in the way that you want to do it. You could do, well, let's see. We do want to go back to our column and align it to the left, and it's cut off up there at the top. All right, I think I kind of want the. I'm gonna do this. I'm just gonna. It's really annoying how that cuts off up there. Duplicate it there, and go end to end here. Then I'm gonna grab that and I'm gonna shoot it over there. Let's do this. All right. So I don't think we. No, we didn't. Okay. We didn't get any user data in here. I'm not going to include usernames or anything. I'm just going to do just the picture. Let's do this and jump it over there. So we can go here. It doesn't really matter where we do it at, but I guess I'll just do it right here on the row and go ahead and reference to the user. So obviously document from reference, users, and then chat messages document created by. And now we can plug in that photo path there for the user. And obviously it'd be same thing down here. And since this is our authenticated user, I just realized that that's actually irrelevant. So you actually don't need to even query there, so you can just get rid of that. And you can just set this as the authenticated user's photo. And then obviously you'd want to set the text to the chat message, message text. Same thing down there. And and then I'm going to use this as the timestamp. Okay. So that's how you can kind of set that up. Obviously, we don't want to expand left to right, which we couldn't anyway, throw an error, but we do want this to be able to expand vertically. So we're going to do that. That way it can expand with the message, depending on the length of the message. So just set that to 0. And that way it can expand up and down. All right, and then if you want to add any media content, again, you can just kind of do this as you see fit. It's really kind of up to you as to how you want to set that up. Let's see here, how long is this? 212. We'll set the width as the same. It's kind of bumped over because of our. I'd actually want that on top because of our thing down here. So grab this and pull it down. Let's see here. There we go. That's still within, yeah, still within the column. Okay, and then just kind of do it like that. And of course you can align it if you want to. Just kind of jet that over some. Getting there. There we go. All right, so you can add an image in there if you want to. It's kind of jumping around a little bit. And I don't know if we set that up in here or not. Yeah, it doesn't look like we did. So we'd want to go back over here. Chat messages. Set that like that. And obviously if they don't upload an image, you can do conditional visibility so you don't have any issues there. So let's set that. Go to our photo, and then is set. So if it's set, it'll be visible. If it's not set, it'll be invisible. This thing's jumping around like crazy. But anyway, so I think you get the idea. That's what we're trying to do here. Bring that back so it's not all over the place. And of course, if you want to add more photos, you could have like do a row, so you could scroll back and forth if you wanted to between the photos, or you could have like little thumbnail type photos, like a big one, and then thumbnails under it, whatever you want to do. But I think that's reasonably straightforward. You can kind of dial that in how you want it to look. That is a different color. Oh, that's not gonna work. So again, that's just kind of up to you how you want to align your content in here, but you can add all sorts of stuff if you want to. But anyway, so what I'd really kind of like to touch on is some of the more, I guess, complex stuff. The stuff that maybe you haven't explored or haven't even thought about. I don't know. But one of the things that I want to look at here, looks like I've already got that set when I was playing around with it. So we'll look at that in just a second. But I've got a couple of pretty simple functions. One of them is a function that if you are trying to tag a user in your message, you would do like the @ sign. And when you do the @ sign, these functions are going to do a couple of things. One, it's going to pop up a box that'll give you a list of users. You can kind of define this however you wanted to. You could make it a list of the users that are a part of the chat. You can make it a list of users that, if you have like any sort of friend system set up or something like that, you can make a list of friends. To the particular user, however you want to set that up. But the function that I have, when you tap the @ sign, it'll pop that box up and allow you to select a user, or you could just type the name out. And then the other function is whenever you tap send, it's going to look at the list of users that you've tagged, and if they are in your friends list, at least this is how I have it set up. Now you could do it different ways, just depending on how you want to do it, but the way I have it set up is if they are a part of your friends list, it'll extract those users and their associated document IDs, and that way you could then pass those document IDs to a push notification and notify the users they've been tagged. So let's jump over real quick to the custom code. Let's see here. So extracting mention, so the super simple function. This is just looking for any combination of characters that follows the @ sign, and then extracts that name from there. And this, you can use this if you want to. This doesn't do anything beyond that. It just identifies that variable and pulls the name out, but it doesn't do anything else. What we want to look at, which let me look and see. This might be relevant. Where's the other one? Here it is. Okay, so I know what I was doing with it then. So yeah, you would want to use this one if you're wanting it to look a certain way. So what this is going to do is it's going to pull the user, like their display name, what everybody else sees, and it's going to put it into a list. Your return value will be a list. So you could go here, type in your @ signs with your users, your mentions, and whenever you create the document for the message, do like tagged users, and I'm not going to set this as document IDs. I'm just going to set it as strings and do list. And then when you do this, you could create, let's see here, you'd have to create first. Probably, we're running that there though. Yeah, we're not going to do it on change. We'll do it on submit. So you would have to, you could apply it to a state variable if you wanted to You could set it as a page state, which would probably be the most logical, I would think, so that you're not making multiple calls. So let's actually do that. So I'm going to go over here and create a page state and just call it tagged usernames. Set that as a string and set that as a list. Right, so we'll come back over here. And so our very first action, we'd actually go to state management and then do update page state. Obviously grab that one we just created there. And then we'd set the value. And from here, we would run our custom function. And the custom function that we would do is the extract mentions. Which, I'm trying to remember what I was doing with this. Yeah, I think it's from here. Yeah, okay, that's right. All right, yeah. So you would do your extract mentions. You'd set it to your text field box. So if you've typed any at John Doe or whatever, then you set that your text field widget as the input variable for this function. And that way, when you click submit, it's going to extract all of the usernames. Not the document IDs, just the plain text usernames. It's going to put it into this list in the page state. And then you can create your document, which would be your chat message. Obviously all the fields you've got here, but we just go to this one, tagged users. And we set the value, and we set the value from that page state, not app state, page state. Okay. It's been doing that. Hasn't been taking it the first time. It's driving me nuts. Let's try that again. There we go. All right, and so that way, if you want to, whenever you display your message, if you have any tagged users, you could run, which I guess I don't know. I don't really know why I did it that way, because the tagged users would be, why did I do it that way? I had a reason that I was doing it that way. I can't remember what it was. The tagged usernames would still be inside of your message anyway. It may have been experimenting with something. I think I know what I was doing. I was experimenting with separating them out and making them linkable to the user's profile. But I didn't go any further with that, so it's up to you whether you want to use that function or not. If you want to use it somewhere and be able to extract those usernames and use them for something, you can. It's up to you. But as far as extracting the IDs for the user documents, that function I just showed you is irrelevant to that. You don't even need to worry about that. So let's jump back over here real quick. The ones that really are relevant. So check for mention is one. And again, it's going to look for that @ sign. And if it detects that @ sign, it's going to change the bool from false to true. And I'll show you what that is applied to in just a second. Again, I've already mentioned it's applied to the pop-up box that'll give you a list of users, whether it's friends to the authenticated user or it's a list of the group chat users or whatever. But it'll give you a pop-up box using this particular code. And then the other one is this one. So this is the one that actually grabs your user document IDs. That way you can send push notifications to the users that you tagged. And it does, let's see here, So again, your return value will be document reference is list of users. Input strings, it's a list. But as far as how it ties into your database, as you can see, there's no arguments for it, so it's all written directly into this code. So you'd have to go in here and put it in. So I've already got it set to users collection, because most people have their user documents in the users collection, so it's already looking at the right collection here. You would want to change that if you have something different. And then I'm pulling, again, I'm looking at like a friends list. I'm not doing it from the group chat. But I have a list of document references in the authenticated users document called contacts. And so that's where it's going to pull that data from. Okay, so that's what this function does. So again, if you want to send push notifications to the people that you tag, this is the one you'll want to use. And just make sure you modify these things to fit with your data structure. And then again, check for mention is if you want to do the pop-up box. So we go back over here, and this is where I have this on change action going on here. Again, it's a custom action, and it's the check for mention. And it's looking at our text field, our input field here. And my output variable is has mention, because we need to apply that to the conditional visibility for that box. So if this returns true, then it outputs that has mention variable. Now, I did have a box in here I was playing around with, but I don't know if I still do. I may have gotten rid of it. Yeah, I guess I did. So anyway, I just go to my stack and container and drag that thing down here, kind of put it wherever, right above the input field here. And then list view. And I'd probably just do usernames. I don't think I'd attach photos, but again, that's up to you. Whatever you want to do. Something like that. Make that smaller. And I'm going to actually set that to white. I'm going to grab my container, that, and then I'm going to make it pretty transparent. Yeah, that'll work. Come on. Oops. I'm going to drop it way down there. All right, let me go ahead and set this. And I can do it directly on the text field. Doesn't really matter. So I'd obviously want to grab document from reference and do users, and then get that from that friends item I just created, and then set that to their display name. And that way I can tap on them like this to tag them if I want to. But we need to go ahead and set the conditional visibility on this container so we don't see it all the time. Now obviously we have that that custom action, which is triggered on change if it detects the @ sign inside your text input field, to switch from false to true. But I found in testing that if we don't assign an additional conditional visibility on top of the custom action, that your box will be visible all the time. So we would actually want to do combined conditions. Our first one would be our action output, as mentioned, is true, and set a single condition here. Go down and choose your text input field and put it as set and not empty. So now it will be invisible, and when you start typing it'll still stay invisible unless you input the @ sign, in which case the box will become visible and you'll be able to scroll through and select users and whatnot. And I didn't really do a whole lot more with this. You could, if you really wanted to dive into custom related code, you could plug it into your text input box, or you could have like a running list of the ones that you select, or maybe just like a check mark if you wanted to do it that way. But you know, you could go ahead and add them since we created that. So you could set that as an action and go to your state management and your update page state, and you could plug them in right here if you wanted to. Just add to list, and you'd add that user, your display name. We don't need to rebuild. Okay, so you can kind of play with that, figure out how you want to do that. All right, so generally that's pretty much it for setting up your feed. It's up to you again how you want to do all this stuff. It's your call. So you just play around with it, make it yours. Line things up how you want, videos or whatever. Obviously this would be like an upload, and if I were building this for me, this would be connected to some APIs and going through some custom related stuff. But for ease of use, you could just do you know, the upload data, just leave that on, and you know, video or photo, whatever you want to do there. And now they can upload pictures and stuff. All right. So, but yeah, that pretty much just takes care of that. That's really, like I said, easy to set up. So, but anyway, so for the rest of this tutorial, you know, this up here, I think we're going to have this like as the name of a chat, or the name of the user you're communicating with if you're just doing one-to-one. But if we're going to have a group chat and we want to set this as like the name of the chat, we've got to have a way to be able to edit, obviously, because we can't, neither of those will do that. So, yeah, I'm just going to ditch that. I'm not even going to have a name in here. We have the name of the chat on the outside of the chat, so it's fine. But next part of this tutorial that I'm going to go over, we're going to come back to these items, because the next set that I want to show you is how we're going to be working with end-to-end encryption. Got some kind of exciting stuff going on there. So we'll come back to adding people to the chat, and of course I'm going to kind of give you a rundown on how you can set up like a conference calling type thing, using some app packages, and to an extent some free WebRTC connections. There are limitations with it, obviously, mainly just how many concurrent connections you can have at one time, and I think there might be some time limits, like no longer than 60 minutes or something like that. But for free, it's pretty great. But for a production level app, I would definitely suggest developing your own, or hiring somebody to develop a WebRTC server, which, you know, you have to also develop turn, stun, and ice. So if you don't have any idea of what any of those are, hire somebody or start start learning how that works. But anyway, what I'm going to show you will be more accessible to you right out of the gate. And you can at least play around with it, maybe do it for testing, MVP, whatever. All right, so we want to go to encryption chat, which I may not have done this. I can't remember if I did this, copied it, so it's pretty much identical. On one of the tutorials, I may have done this off camera. So if that's the case, it's just a copy of this one, but we're going to set it up for end-to-end encryption. So what I'm about to do is I'm going to explain to you how this is going to work, how I've developed the end-to-end encryption, why I went with this particular method, the hang-ups I encountered, the pitfalls, where I landed, and then where I ended up after it was all said and done, because I've made a lot of changes. But where I've gotten to at this point is ideal. Like, it's, I don't know. I'm sure there's better stuff, but this is using a very well-known and reliable encryption method. And it works 100% inside of Flutterflow. Obviously, I had to manipulate it quite a bit. I had to tweak it to make it work inside of Flutterflow. But I'll explain all that. So that's what we're about to dive into. I am going to take a quick break, real quick. So I'm actually going to stop the video. But I'm going to come back and finish recording all of this. And so this will all be one tutorial when you see it. So I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, I'm back. For you, it's like I never left. Let me preface by saying that if you are one of my subscribers that gets pissed off when I talk and don't show you anything, then you may as well go ahead and just exit out of this tutorial. Because this particular one is more geared towards the people that want to learn more complex things. Maybe they can learn by listening and don't have to just watch the entire time. I will do some visual stuff, but this particular aspect has a lot more explanation than visual demonstration. So if this isn't for you, you can go ahead and exit, and you can leave a nasty comment if you'd like. I can 100% guarantee that I will respond sarcastically. So do as you wish. But anyway, encryption. So if you read my post that I made on YouTube, I don't know when it was, a couple of days ago, I had mentioned that I found a method, developed a method to do end-to-end encryption, but it was a pretty massive workaround. The reason being is because if you've played with Flutterflow any amount of time, then you know that when you do custom code, there are some pretty significant limitations, mainly in your return types. Flutterflow limits what type of returns you can give. And when it comes to data encryption, the return types are not typically in a string format. We'll just go with string because it's the most logical. And so you'll constantly get kickbacks that the format, the return parameter cannot be processed, which is obnoxious. It drives me nuts, but that's why we find ways to circumvent that, work around it, and make things work. So originally, most end-to-end encryption inside of apps use some form or another of public-private key pairs to establish the end-to-end encryption between two users. Basically what that is, if you don't know anything about that, is a public-private key is generated for a user automatically, usually when they sign up. Typically they never see those keys. Some apps do allow you to see it, but generally it's more confusing to do it that way. So most Most of the time they don't see it. But that standard form usually uses like an RSA, public-private key pair. And what happens is whenever two users establish a communication channel with each other, user A would acquire user B's public key and vice versa, because the public key is public. Private key obviously needs to be secured locally on the user's device, persisted in app state with the device encryption in place. That's the best way to handle it, using the keychain that is available for the device, which obviously if you go over here to app state, you can set secure persisted fields, and you can do it that way. But anyway, so they would encrypt a message with the other user's public key, send the encrypted message to the user, and then the user would decrypt that message with their private key. And that's generally how it works. Very straightforward, pretty simple. Problem is that RSA keys, the output, the return variable for those cannot be processed inside of Flutterflow because they aren't strings. So Flutterflow will constantly kick back errors. And so, given the fact that key pairs in that way are the most logical way of doing end-to-end encryption, it was driving me crazy of trying to figure out how to make that work. I did cross paths with the concept of perhaps converting the keys into a readable format and then outputting them, but that didn't work. RSA key pairs are pretty large. If you've ever seen them, you would know that the public key can be extremely long. And private key is not as long, but it's still pretty big. And when you go into a conversion process, it doesn't convert well to a readable format and then back into its original state to be able to perform the encryption and decryption. And so you run into issues with that. And I tried various ways to try and get it to work. I would get partial decryption of data, where part of the message would come out clean, but the rest of it would be garbled. So it never worked, no matter what I did with it. So it was a lost cause to try and use RSA. So what I ended up doing originally was a pretty massive workaround. It worked, but it was just a lot of extra steps to make it work, and it was not efficient, really, as far as cost, I guess. Associated costs would probably be kind of high because you would have to use some transfer across networks. And on top of that, even though the method I was using provided a pretty high level of security and it never exposed the private key to the network, there was still some vulnerability there. And I wasn't extremely happy with the way it was working. And I felt like the process generally would have been extremely confusing for anybody that either is inexperienced with encryption or just trying to figure out what I was doing. It probably would have left you very, very confused. So that being the case, I really wanted to find a way to make this thing work with key pairs in a very simplified way. So I began exploring. There's a ton of encryption protocols out there, and they serve various purposes. And so what I ended up landing on, I wasn't entirely sure if I could get it to work either, but it's a form of public-private key pairing called elliptical curve cryptography. If you've never heard of that, look it up. It's interesting. I've messed with it in the past a couple of times, but never really got too much into it because I always used RSA, so it wasn't really something that I needed to deal with. But now I needed to kind of dial into it, figure out how I was going to use it. But what the huge benefit to it is that the ECC, we'll call it that for the abbreviation of it, both the public and private keys are super compact. They're way smaller than RSA keys. And so it provided a greater opportunity to be able to actually convert those to a readable format. So I went through that process. It took me quite a while to dial that in, but what I have landed on is a fully functioning, highly transferable and usable encryption, end-to-end encryption that takes place on the user's device without having to risk exposing anything or having to use an inefficient process to do it. So the quick and skinny of it, just kind of dive into what it's doing is we are still creating a key pair. We're just using a different type of encryption. We're using ECC to do that. And so when a user creates their account, it'll create the public-private for them. So I will go ahead and say up front, because of the length of time it took me to develop these codes, I'm not going to be providing these encryption codes to you for free. They will be available for sale. There will be a link in the description of this video if you want to go and grab them and use them. You can do it that way. So I'm not going to show you the actual codes. You can hate me for that if you want, but this took a little longer than I anticipated to dial that side of things in, make it work in Flutterflow. And so I would, I think I'm gonna charge for it, but the price will be extremely fair, provided what you're getting. So, so anyway, but I am gonna jump over here to the code at least, so I can at least grab the names, kind of show you what we're doing. So the very first thing that would happen is it'd come down here. Let's see, where is it at? Yeah, right here. So generate key pair strings. So this is a generation process, right? So that creates the public-private keys. And during that generation process, it goes ahead and it converts them into a readable, exportable format that can be transferred into Flutterflow as a string, which is fantastic because that's what we have to make it work. And obviously to keep it local on the user's device. And so so it creates that. Now, what it does is it the return variable is it's a string as an array or a list, and it consists of 3 strings. The private key is 1, and then the public key is split into 2. It's an x and y variable of the public key that makes up the other 2 strings of that export. And so after that's created, we go up here, and I have 2 functions. I have extract private key and extract public key, because we need to split these 2 things apart, because they need to be stored differently. So this one takes the private key from the array, and it stores it at an app state variable, and persisted and encrypted. You want to do that because the private key is vitally important to keep it secure. The public key, both strings XY are extracted, and they are saved here, pub key. You can ignore some of these things. You're just testing, but it saves this pub key as a list. Again, it's 2 different strings. And you can save this to the user's document because it needs to be exposed so that other users can obtain it. So you got to transfer it, send it across the network. Now, obviously, you want to transfer it securely. If you're using your own infrastructure and database, you need to be making sure that you're doing this securely. You don't want to just flaunt this thing around, but it is not as vital to keep in a secure way as the private key is. All right, so that that goes there. So we've extracted those two things. So now what happens is we've got this action here, which is the compute share key strings. So how the users are going to encrypt their data. They don't encrypt their messages using the other user's public key. And this is actually in my opinion, a better security method in the way that this works. So what happens is user A establishes communication with user B in an encrypted chat, and user A obtains user B's public key. User B obtains user A's public key. And then user A and user B create this shared key by using their own private key to, we'll just say encrypt. It's not really the right word, it's more of a derivative, but the other user's public key. And because of the way this particular ECC algorithm works, when user A uses their private key to extract the shared key from user B's public key, and user B does the same thing with their own private key to user A's public key, the returned result, the shared key that's returned, is identical for both user A and user B. So they both get the exact same key. And so now they both have the key they need for encryption and decryption of the messages that they're sending across this secure channel. And at no point are the private aspects, either the shared key or the private key, neither of them are exposed to a network. When the shared key is generated for both user A and user B, it is then also saved to app state secured storage. And then it is assigned to that particular chat and used for encryption and decryption. Now, then we have another custom action, which is the encrypt message with the shared key. And it's going to utilize AES encryption method along with an IV, which is an initialization vector. And it's going to encrypt it with AES, and I believe that I set it up for 256. I know originally I said I was just going to use 128, but went ahead with 256, so it's pretty freaking secure. So that shared key both encrypts and decrypts, and it encrypts into AES. And then once the message is encrypted, then it is sent to the server, to the database, in its encrypted form. And then user B receives it on their side and decrypts it with their shared key. And so now we've got this ideal solution for end-to-end encryption that really, honestly, I was kind of surprised that it works. Not so much the encryption in the code and things like that. Like, I mean, the code is good to go, but I'm surprised it works in Flutterflow. Yeah, it works great. And it does use some pub packages to get some of the encryption algorithms instead of trying to do that from scratch, because that would be really challenging and long. But it uses Pointy Castle, which is an encryption package. It also uses the encryption package, just encryption, and it uses the crypto package to make all these various things work. So that's the baseline of how it works. It's pretty simple, and honestly, if you do buy this and you lay eyes on the code, the code is pretty simple. It's compact and easy and works flawlessly, honestly. I'll even show you here. Pull this over. Down here, so you can see testing, I've got my pub key here, just split into two. And then I've got shared key, which of course you do not want to put this shared key onto your database. Obviously, this needs to be stored locally, but I was just doing this for testing. Excuse me. You can see my message right here. I want cheese. I had a craving for cheddar earlier, which that craving has since passed. So, but that was what was on my mind at that particular moment. But anyway, so you can see got a shared key generated here, and then I have an encrypted message, which is this message here, and that's the encryption. This part to the left of the colon is the IV, and then to the right of the colon is the actual like AES encryption. And then this was the decryption going back to its original state. So I just wanted to show you that real quick. All right. So yeah, that's how that works. It's really great. Works perfectly. Super simple to implement. If you do decide to buy it, like I said, there'll be a link in the description. There's some description over there at the marketplace. It's not the Flutterflow marketplace. It's a personal thing through Shopify and something else. But anyway, so it'll kind of describe what these things do. But if you do purchase it, the actual code is notated, so you kind of know what you're looking at. And it'll also come with a detailed video where I actually go through the code and show you what it's doing, how it works, and everything like that, and how to implement it into your project. So something else too, and this little aspect, I'm gonna show it to you here. API calls. So I have my own development server, written my own API calls for this. This is not necessary to use the key pairing for your encrypted chat. But I just thought it was cool, and I wanted to play around with it. But basically what I've done is created a verification message, or verification method. Goodness gracious, can't speak today. That establishes a form of trust between user A and user B, so that user A can verify that the message that was sent from user B actually came from user B, and vice versa. Again, not necessary to use the encryption, but it was kind of an interesting experiment that I wanted to work with. I'll show that to you. So I have a post call, which that creates the hash key. If you, just so you know, if you try and ping my API endpoints, you're not gonna make it, because I have it locked, so you can't get through. So I know I'm sitting here showing it to you, but yeah, you won't be able to get there. So have at it if you want to. But anyway, so it's a post call, very simple. I don't have any API keys set up for this. I was, again, just testing. The body is JSON. I'm passing in 3 variables. One is photo URL, another is UID, and then the last one is Dart. Variables here, they're just strings. And basically what this is doing is the API that I have set up will intake these parameters, and the first part of the API will extract the 2 dominant colors from the photo and utilize the color codes for creating the hash. It'll also take the UID of the user, and it'll take an inputted Dart code. So this could be automatically generated, or just, again, for fun, you could let your user, create their own little Dart code and plug it in here, and it'd be a part of their verification hash. And then they would send this over, and if it was successful, it'd come back and say that created the hash for them. which, yeah, I got disconnected here. Looks like. Drag that over here real quick. Make sure there's nothing exposed. I don't want just hanging out there, which I don't think really matters anyway, because it's just a testing server. There's nothing important on here really. So, I'm gonna have to look up and see my files. Oh, what did I save those things as? Okay, so that's the right one. Let's do this. Oh, okay. Got that saved somewhere else. I don't think I have this set up to do this. Yeah. Okay. Give me just a second. See if I can figure this out. I gotta remember where I have this file stored to be initialized from. Okay. I should have that now. Get that pulled back up here. Alright, we're good to go now. So let me go ahead and run that script real quick. There we go. So it should be the right script to test this. So I've got some stuff in here, just random. Alright, so we got a success. So it returned the hash key for that user. Right. Got that down here. We've got it as our recommended JSON path. So I've got all that saved. And then, so what that does is it returns the key for that user, and it's stored. Doesn't necessarily have to be stored. Absolute encryption, you do want to keep it safe, but it's kind of debatable. But then I've also got it set up so that it creates a copy of it over in MongoDB right here. So it creates a copy in Mongo and assigns the UID to it. And that way, if a user inside the chat wants to verify that the other user is sending the messages that it's legit, then we'd use this API call here. And I need to start that script as well, which, what did I call this? I can't remember what I called anything. Okay, I guess I got that right. Which this is a GET call. Query parameters are the UID and the hash key. And that should be the same hash key that I've returned. Some UID, so I should get a success. So it basically it takes the local hash key that's being transmitted. What I would do is every time user A or user B sends a message to the other that's encrypted, they would also tag their hash key along with each message, and then the user could verify that it's from the correct user, or it could be an automatic process that verifies it. And if it, returns something bad, the hash key isn't right for the user they're talking to, then it returns could not verify, proceed with caution. So it lets them know that that may not be the person that you think you're talking to. So this is kind of a neat little algorithm that just kind of creates this handshake of trust between the two users and gives them a basic way to validate that they are talking to the right person. Again, not necessary to use the end-to-end encryption, but it is it's kind of a cool little verification process here. If you're interested in something like this, want to learn more about this, hit me up, let me know. I'll be happy to talk with you about it. And go from there. So anyway, that's pretty much it as far as the end-to-end encryption. I'm sure you would have liked to see me like actually build this out, but that's going to be for the folks that actually go buy the encryption. All of that will be included in that video. So if you want to lay your hands on it and actually use it inside your app, then head on over to that link that's in the description and buy that code package, and then you'll get that video and you can see how all this ties in together. I'll actually show you it in motion and how it works and everything like that. So, all right, that's it for this tutorial. I know this was more explanation than visual, so if you hung in there, then good job. And I figured that you're probably more inclined to actually learn stuff. For those that bailed out because they don't like to hear me talk, well, they're probably following the wrong content creator, because I explain a lot quite frequently. I think you know that by now. All right, that's it for now. The next one might take a look at this part. Actually, we will. We'll take a look at both of these, specifically the WebRTC video connection. It's pretty cool. All right, take care.